this.
It's official. Big Labor wants a big bailout for Detroit. The AFL-CIO releasing this statement. Quote, "We call upon President Obama and Congress to commit to an immediate infusion of federal assistance for Detroit." Close that quote. That could mean up to $18 billion. So should taxpayers be forced to pay? To Sabrina Schaeffer, who says absolutely not, but Mark Hanna says bail them out. Sabrina, you first.
Well, let me just start by saying that I feel for the workers of Detroit, people who have built lives and businesses in Detroit and who are suffering because of the way that their city has been managed. But the fact is, for too long, the automakers have ruled that city. There has been this corrupt, cozy relationship between the unions and the politicians, keeping each other in power. And we're seeing that Rome has fallen, and we have to let it fail if we ever want to learn from the mistakes.
Now, Mark, you say what? Bail them out? Or what are you calling it?
Yeah, well, listen, I'll agree with Sabrina that there's absolutely been a system of corruption in Detroit, and that shouldn't be forgivable by any stretch of the imagination. But when we think about, here's my but, the assistance that should be going to Detroit, and I think anybody, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you live in the state of Michigan, have to realize that these are people who have been working for years, for 20 years, 30 years, public employees who have paid into a pension system, and they're contractually entitled, in a way, to this money that they've paid into. So, yes, we need to work on pension reform going forward. This is a sort of
So what are you saying?
This is a warning
bail
bell.
out the pensions right now? That's what the bankruptcy was all about, to renegotiate.
I'm saying we're talking about $18,000 a year to people who have paid into these pensions. We're not talking about major government largesse.
What are you saying to do? The feds, the taxpayer, the U.S. taxpayer in Kansas has to bail out Detroit for what reason?
Right, because the entire American economy, look, there's an apt analogy here to Germany. Germans right now are furious that they have to, chip in more tax dollars in order to buoy Spain and Italy. But at the same time, the entire European Union benefits financially. It's in America's economic interest to make sure that Detroit, a great American city, is viable.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Go ahead, Sabrina. I'm sympathetic to these people.
Hold on, Sabrina, hold on. We're not saying that Detroit isn't a great American city. We're simply saying that they did things wrong, fiscally, completely wrong.
Right,
go ahead.
The workers should
let me get Sabrina and go.
Well, I am sympathetic to these workers, like I said, but unfortunately they have been robbed by their politicians, by their union leaders. They've been lied to consistently for years and years because we've all known that these pension systems were unsustainable. The bigger problem is that Detroit has a history of picking winners and losers, and right now we can't afford to pursue that track any farther. The fact is, this is a city with the highest income tax in the state, the highest property tax in the country, the total job decentralization. And as a result, we have a city rife with crime, failing schools, and debt. So I think, unfortunately, it's on an unsustainable path. We have to let it fail, and hopefully someone will help pick up the pieces.
Mark, you take a look at cities like Dallas, some other cities that are doing things right. They don't have a city income tax, and their property taxes are frankly lower than Detroit, which has both an income tax and a high property tax.
Should we make the people who are working class Detroit residents who have been paying into their pension systems pay for the failures of the corruption by local politicians? I personally think that people who've been paying...
Okay. Maybe hold on. But maybe we shouldn't. But should the rest of the American taxpayer pick up that tab?
Look, I think Detroit is in an emergency situation. When we bailed out, for example, the auto companies, when we bailed out Wall Street, we're bailing out financiers, and we're bailing out people who make six-figure bonuses. We can bail out somebody
Sabrina,
that needs to eat.
Mark points something out. We did bail out the auto companies, but guess what? Detroit's still bankrupt.
And Americans are done with bailouts. That's because we still have high unemployment. People are still suffering. They're working hard trying to make their own ends meet.
But Sabrina, from a practical standpoint, are you going to look in the eye a 50-year-old, 65-year-old retiree in Detroit and tell them that they can't get the $18,000 a year that they've been paying into when their family needs that to eat, when they need to pay their mortgage?
But what about the young worker in Detroit who's trying to bring up a family and saying, I can't afford that. It's not my fault that these people were lied to. And what does it say to all of the other cities out there that are trying to be fiscally responsible? What does it say to a city like Dallas? Well, you have reasonable, fiscally responsible policies, but we're going to tax your taxpayers in order to help the people of Detroit who have had bad politicians.
Right, we're going to have to leave it there.
The wrong message.
We have to leave it there. That's Sabrina and that's Mark. By the way, there are at least 15 other American cities that may be on the brink